It's really interesting because this starts to bring up a lot of like emotions in people, fear, doubt, like all the things that, perfectionism. I mean, like, how do people start to overcome that? Because people have an expectation of who they are. And then when they hit the first time anyone publishes, the first time I did a podcast, like here, because I have a stutter and all that, I was like, wow, like this is not going to work. But I was like, look, I'm just going to start to record. The first one was hard and it wasn't as good as the 5th one or the 10th one and so on, right? But not everybody is prepared to put themselves out there and to fail. And so, like, how can people start to warm themselves up to being able to publish? Because there is this massive fear of hey, I want to publish, but I'm scared of being embarrassed.
Yeah. So I want to do a small digression and then come back to that. Mm-hmm. It's interesting that in an industrial economy where everything is about the things that are easy to measure, which we call hard skills, you have been indoctrinated, like many people, into believing that the fact that you have a stutter means you shouldn't have a podcast because you aren't hitting every single word at the rhythm you're supposed to. But you're not mentioning that you have more empathy and energy and excitement and optimism than almost anybody who has a podcast. So the person who's sitting there with perfect diction and who's boring as dust thinks they're entitled to have a podcast because they fit in. This is perfectionism.
Yeah, sure.
That's not what the world needs more of. It needs these real skills, which some people call soft skills, of humanity showing up. And if you show up with enough humanity, people don't care whether you have hair or not. People don't care whether you have a stutter or not because you're connecting with other humans. And so to answer the original question, we come to the smallest viable audience. So all of us grew up with mass media. And so we know who Oprah is, and we know who Aretha Franklin is, and we know who Ellen DeGeneres is, at least in the States, right? That success looks like 30, 40, 50 million people. But the internet is not a mass medium. The internet is a micro medium. That nobody on the internet, nobody reaches 30 million people a day. And so instead of saying, how many likes did you get on Twitter? We can say, did 100 people get touched by you in a way that they won't soon forget? And if you can publish to 100 people, what's the worst that could happen? It'll just bounce off. You'll never hear from them again. That's it. But there's plenty of other groups of 100. You're never going to run out. If you can serve the smallest viable audience and overwhelm them with what they need, they'll tell the others. And then this micro medium kicks in and benefits you.
And it's so interesting on that point as well, because on that point, I thought, well, because of the stutter, like it's not going to be as good. But then everyone was like, well, wow, because of the stutter, this is really interesting. Like the fact that you have this, it seemed to have connected a lot more. And it was the opposite of what I thought, because there's something that happens, I think, in somebody's head where it's not real, the fear that they have. They don't understand how people are going to react. And so then they are thinking they're positioning it too high and then they're getting stuck. And so I like your point on just start with a small audience, start with something small and publish. What does somebody start to write about? Okay, cool. Say, for example, someone says, sounds great. I want to start. What should I talk about? How do I talk every single day about something, say, for example?
So I would ask, what's the change you seek to make? So let's say that you're a periodontist and you would like to change the way the 9,000 periodontists in your country deal with infection, right? Let's pick something super specific. You can't just change it in 5 minutes. It's going to take a persistent, dripwise, creative narrative to help earn their attention, then earn their trust, and then get them to make a small experiment and then another one, and then to build a community. So the path is really clear once you tell me what change you want to make. Maybe the change you want to make is you want to go from being an unknown comic to being a respected comic. Oh, really? Respected by who? Right? Respected by the people who, want to laugh at off-color jokes and drink 7 beers, or respected by the people who read the New Yorker? Tell me who you're trying to change. Let's be really specific and put you on the hook. And people hate that because people don't want to be on the hook. And I want to point out that being on the hook is the only place to be, because when you're on the hook is when you have leverage, is when you're making a promise that you can work to keep. And so we got to get really clear about who are we seeking to serve? Who are we helping to change? And if you can't start there, you're going to get stuck, because the first time you show up, you're not going to get a standing ovation, and then you're going to give up.
It's a super point. And I think this seems to apply quite a lot to thought leadership of sorts, right? So to putting stuff out, to achieving a goal. And so like on the one side of it is the music side. And then on the other side is what everyone on this podcast is going to be doing, which is thought leadership side, the content marketing side, the content side, we'll call it, right? So from the content side of things, it seems that you need to have achieved some level of skill or some experience or something to be able to do that. But that's only in perspective of the people which you're trying to serve. Is that right or not? You know what I mean? Because like if someone's just starting out, they're not going to be going out there saying, hey, I'm going to change the game when they're just starting out, but they want to ship. So what does that person do?
Right. So first, I need to put an important aside here with exclamation points on both sides. I've never met someone who woke up in the morning saying, I wish someone would hustle me today. I wish someone would use social pressure and other tactics to hustle me into doing something I don't want to do. I wish someone would use pop-ups and pop-unders and funnels and trick me and all that to get my attention. No, no one says that. So don't do that. Nothing you're working on justifies you doing that. Mm-hmm. Number two is, of course, you don't have an enormous amount of expertise in whatever you want to do. So maybe you begin by convening people who do, by making connection happen. That in itself is a creative act. So I don't know if you know the legend of Esther Dyson or not. Esther is one of the most important people in the history of tech. I met her in 1983. In 1983, Esther Dyson had a newsletter. It was written on blue paper. It was mailed to its subscribers, and it was 8 pages long, single-spaced typed. And it outlined people that she had met in tech who were launching interesting companies. If you wanted the newsletter, it cost $3,000 a year. And she and her partner began probably with 50 subscribers. But it was so valuable to these venture capitalists and others that the word spread. You needed to be a subscriber. And at its peak, I think it had 3,000 subscribers. 3,000 people paying $3,000 in 1983 to hear Esther Dyson every 2 weeks talk about who she had met. So now the question is it worth going out of your way to meet Esther Dyson? It took a long time to get a meeting. If you got a meeting, you went to her building. There were 2 elevators, and she was on the 5th floor. And if you took the wrong elevator, it stopped at the 4th floor. So you had to send that elevator down to the basement and then quickly get in the other elevator so you get to the 5th floor. It was a puzzle. Then Esther started a conference. And the only people who were allowed to come to the conference were people who subscribed to the newsletter. And at the conference, she had her favorite people of the year present their companies. Now, if you are one of these entrepreneurs, is it worth it to present at the Release 2.0 conference? If you're one of these investors, is it worth going to the, everyone wins. What did Esther do? She convened. She created connection where there was no connection. Within 5 years, she knew more about the future of tech than anybody, because she had spent her time as a convener, hearing different points of view and reflecting it back to people in a way that was generous. She hustled no one. She ended up becoming an angel investor in probably hundreds of companies. She was on the board of Meetup before it sold, and on. And I've known her off and on for years. Is Esther a genius? Yes. Was she born a genius? No. Right? Helps that she comes from a family of geniuses, so she was expected to be a genius. If you've heard of the Dyson sphere, it was, I think, her uncle, physicist, invented it. But the point is still, this is open now to everyone to say, there is this genre I want to work in. There is this place where I want to put a stake in the ground that is generous how will I then go to the next level and the next level and the next level? And any industry you can name that has a successful player in it has a successful player because they got there an inch at a time. Starbucks didn't start with 12,000 stores. It started with 3, and they didn't even sell coffee. They just sold beans. So the process is available. You got to commit to it.